Hopefully you survived the last video all about the forces of perception. If you didn't watch it, do me a favor. Go take a nap, get well rested, and then watch that video. And then come back and watch this one. Trust me, it'll make all the difference. Now in this video, I'll be talking about attribution and attribution errors, as covered in Chapter 4 of Kory Floyd's Interpersonal Communication. Trust me, this video will be much shorter than the last one, but the information is just as vital. First, what is attribution? Well, it's really just an explanation for some behavior that we observe in another person. When somebody says or does something, we assign meaning to that. This is attribution. Attribution is made up of three dimensions: locus, stability, and controllability. Every attribution we assign has these three parts. Locus, that's L-O-C-U-S, like locust without the T, is where the behavior is located. Locus, location. Get it? What we really mean is whether the source of the behavior is something internal or external. Internal meaning something inside of ourselves. Could be an internal state or a trait. If you see me yawn, you probably assume that I'm tired. And me being tired would be an internal locus. It's something going on inside of my body. But sometimes people yawn because they see somebody else yawn. This is a weird thing called contagious yawning. Look it up. So if somebody else just yawned and then I yawn, that might not be anything internal in me. That could be the external stimulus of seeing somebody else yawn. Crazy, right? No, the second dimension of attribution is stability. Is the behavior something that is permanent, or might it change over time? If I am tired right now, that isn't permanent. That is an unstable cause. If I were to get some sleep, I wouldn't be tired anymore. Here's another example. In an interaction, if I was really grumpy and was frowning at a friend of mine, they might try to determine why I'm so irritable. If I'm always grumpy, then that's just my personality. It's a stable cause. If I just am hungry and therefore a little unpleasant, that would be an unstable cause. I can fix hunger with a yummy Snickers bar. This video brought to you by Snickers is something I would like to say if Snickers would just sponsor me. Snickers, I'm waiting for your call. The third dimension of attribution is controllability. That is, how much control do we have over the cause of our behavior? In the previous example, if I am hungry and I have the means to get food, then my hunger is controllable. However, if I don't have any money or other means to get food to relieve my hunger, then my grumpiness would be considered uncontrollable. Now, allow me to break in with a public service announcement. Did you know that Lone Star College Sci-Fair has a food pantry offering free food to any student or employee? We do. It's in the first floor of CASA, and it's called the Empowerment Center. Check it out. You don't have to go hungry. Okay, we're back from that commercial break. So we have attribution, and the three dimensions of attribution: locus, stability, and controllability. But what happens when we make errors with attribution? Well, fortunately, we haven't answered that question. There are three common types of attribution errors. The first is called the self-serving bias error. This is about attributions of what happens to us. Self-serving bias error, in a nutshell, is what happens when we attribute our own success to an internal cause and any failures to an external cause. This is super common. I mean, we all do this to some extent. I find that students particularly do this a lot. Well, I know I did when I was a student. Whenever I got a good grade on a test, I would thank three people: me, myself, and I. I was so smart, so brilliant, so amazing. I mean, duh, right? But when I got a bad grade, I would blame pretty much everybody. My boss for making me work late, my parents for not giving me enough support, my friends for making me have one too many drinks when we went out instead of studying, my teacher for not being smart enough to teach me better, my teacher again for making the test too hard, my teacher again for not caring about how fragile my ego was, my teacher because, well, let's just say it was in my mind mostly my teacher's fault. One person I never blamed was, well, it was never me. I mean, it couldn't be my fault, right? Yeah, right. The thing is, so many of us rarely thank our parents, our friends, our bosses for helping us find success. Because they probably did help you along the way. And for sure, we hardly ever thank our teachers for helping to teach us and make us better. And I'm not saying this to try to get you to thank me. I didn't thank my teachers either. Hey, that reminds me, I should write a thank you note to Mr. Marr. He was the best. Oh. On to the next attribution error. It's called the fundamental attribution error. This is when we tend to place an internal locus on another person's behavior, instead of considering a potential external locus. The book has a great example, all about when you get cut off by somebody in traffic, you assume that this person is a jerk. But for all you know, maybe they were swerving out of the way so they wouldn't hit a baby kitten walking in the road. We can avoid the fundamental attribution error by simply coming up with alternative answers as to why a person has done something. I can use myself as an example again. A few years back when I was kind of a jerky professor, I would assume that anybody who was absent from my class just didn't care about learning and that they were being rude and disrespectful. I was offended by their lack of caring about all of the work I had done to be ready for them. And then, in the last few years, I've come to realize that the vast majority of people, when they miss class, do have something else going on. It could be they're overloaded with too many classes, they're having health problems, or they're having family issues. So now I reach out to all absent students and ask gently, "Are you okay?" Because I do try to avoid the fundamental attribution error. I want to know. The final attribution error is called over-attribution. This, to me, is the trickiest of the three. This feels a lot like stereotyping to me. We pick out a characteristic of a person, i.e. a group they belong to, and we assign a bunch of attributions based on that one group. I think the difference is that with stereotyping, we tend to first assume a characteristic about a group, and then apply that characteristic to a person, whereas with over-attribution, we find behaviors a person is doing, and then assign those behaviors back to a group they belong to. Yeah, that's the best I have for this one. Here's the deal. I just won't ask you to ever describe this one on the quiz. Yeah, it might be on a multiple choice, but never in a short answer. I think that's best. Okay, that's it. This wasn't too long, but definitely a bit more than 5 minutes. These chapters are intense, y'all. No bonus on this video, but I am glad you made it. Have a great week.